Charisma Quotient. I'm your host, Kim Seltzer, a dating and makeover expert, where I will help you build confidence, make connections, and find love from the outside in. There is something that quietly affects a lot of people when they're dating or even in relationships, and that is the fear of being seen. And I'm not just talking about physically, but also emotionally. Because here's what I've noticed when I've worked with so many single women and men, that after a while, you may have your voice in business, you may have your voice with your family, your friends, but when it comes to dating, you might shrink. You might overthink, you might hold back, and you become cautious, guarded, and disconnected, especially if you're dating in the second act later in life, because you could have been in a really toxic relationship that slowly quieted your voice, and maybe rejection, heartbreak, or betrayal made you afraid to be fully open again. Or maybe you just spent so much of your life being who everybody else wants you to be, that somewhere along the way, you lost touch with your own wants, desires, and even purpose. And before you know it, you stop expressing yourself fully, and you stop just taking up space. You stop allowing yourself to truly be seen and heard. And honestly, you might even realize you're not, like you have no idea that you're doing it. There was a client that I was working with, and her name was Betsy, and she called me. And she hadn't dated in 25 years. She'd been single, and she had been working that whole time, taking care of her kids. And she called me up and she's like, I know I want to get back out there, but I just don't know what to do and even where to begin. And so she came to LA. We did a whole, Hitch meets what not to wear experience, where we went shopping and we went flirting. We had a photo shoot and all. But something really interesting happened in the beginning, and when I sat down with her, I was really seeing how much she was keeping herself small. She was invisible. She was constantly apologizing for herself, and she had been married to a narcissist, so her voice had been shut down. So our first thing that we did was go shopping. As you know, I love going shopping first, and as we're at the doors, she starts bawling. And I stopped, before we walked into the department store, I said, what's going on? And she said, there's something I haven't told you. I said, what's that? She said, I cover all my mirrors at home, and I haven't seen myself in 15 years. Now, as a traditional therapist, maybe I would have sat down with her, did a little cognitive therapy. That's not what this woman needed. She needed a little tough love and to see herself differently. So I gave her a big hug. I said, let's just walk through. I'll hold your hand, and I want you to just put on a couple of items. So I gave her a jacket. I gave her some boots. And I said, I want you to twirl around and look in the mirror and just give me 5 seconds. That's all. So she does it, and she looks at herself in the mirror. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, beyond the 5 seconds, and she starts crying again. And this time it was tears of joy. And she said, Kimmy, I haven't seen myself so beautiful in so long. And now we're hugging, and after that I created a monster, because then we were skipping through the store. She was then changing with the door open. All the body image and shame that she had just quickly went out the door, because she saw herself. We did a photo shoot. She looked amazing. She put those photos online, and she came back and she said, I got myself a boyfriend, and he was not a narcissist. Now look, there was a lot that had to happen along the way. But when she really realized how much she was shutting down her voice and being seen, being visible was the first step that she needed to do. So this is the theme that we're talking about today. I am so excited for our guest. I am actually in her studio, and we are going to talk about visibility. She's a television personality inspirational speaker, author, and founder of the McCord List. And you can see this gorgeous studio that I have here in Manhattan Beach, California. And she's dubbed as the influencer of influencers. And she's appeared on networks including Bloomberg, E!, Peacock, USA. Her bio goes on and on and on. And she has a really more interesting and personal story that I can't wait for her to just talk about. And she has humble beginnings, and she's built herself up, so she definitely knows about visibility. So welcome, Rachel McCord.
I'm so excited.
So happy, and I'm honored to be interviewing you for a change.
You are so sweet. I'm honored to sit down with you. I love your show. I love what you're doing and how you're sharing these messages that inspire and transform people's lives. I love the story that you shared. I think it's so important to be real about how it feels. Every transformation, every new show that we build, it's all about helping people actually get their mindset in check so that they're even open and willing and ready to sit down and have these conversations. So I'm excited to be in the hot seat.
I know, on the couch as we were joking before, and you're such an amazing interviewer, and like anybody who knows you and sees you, it seems like you've always been this way. Like, have you always been this outgoing, bubbly, visible person who helps other people? Or because I really don't know your whole journey and your story and how you got here. I'd love to hear more.
So literally no.
Okay.
Just to start off,
that's shocking to me.
So I was homeschooled. I came from a difficult childhood that had me in a bit of a shell. I was very reserved. I had a speech impediment, and I was so nervous to talk out loud that sometimes when I would be speaking, I would just fade myself out. And people were like, what? What are you saying? Like my volume would just go to nothing. I was really nervous, and putting myself out there was and still sometimes is pretty scary, right? Like, I don't think that you ever stop being aware, especially if platforms grow in your life and you need to level up as a human in order to keep up with what's happening for you. But I will tell you, as far as wanting to help people, I've always been like that. Ever since I was a little tiny kid, I'd rescue birds. I still do this. I rescue squirrels. I mean, I'm a total nut. I went to Costa Rica one time and had to buy these huge bags of dog food because apparently there are a ton of stray dogs in Costa Rica. And so we'd stop the car and I'd be getting out in these dangerous hills, to pour food out and give them water and stuff. So, I've always kind of been that girl who wanted to make an impact and help. But, I grew up in trailer parks with trauma. So I didn't know where God would take my journey and what my platform would really look like. Today, it's obviously become what it is now. And I get to help people who are helping people, which feels very inspiring and encouraging, because when I went through a major health scare, I didn't know if I was going to survive it. So when I came back to work, I wanted to be more efficient with the work that I was doing, because there's so much that we can all do at home, right? Whether it's loving on your neighbor, helping them, walking someone across the street and carrying their bags for them. Like, you can do these, I call them the ARC moments that I heard about in Evan Almighty, acts of random kindness. And I always tell my son, how can we do an ARC today? But I think about how we're all invited to do that. But when I came back to work, I was really intentional about my heartbeats and how I wanted to utilize them and how I wanted to be the most efficient. And I realized there would be a moment when I would pass on and go to heaven. And I wanted to make sure that I had spent my time wisely. And if I could help other people along the way, whether I'm mentoring them, coaching them, activating them, letting them host their own shows and get messages of empowerment out into the world, then for me, that puts a lot of different balls on multiple different lanes. And go guys, and then you get to watch it move and see what it's going to become. So I've always been all about helping people, but I definitely was not the girl to do it in front of the camera. That was more of my sister.
Wow. I'm actually shocked to hear that, because and also hopefully it'll give a lot of people hope, saying, oh my God, she has been there. So were there certain, I don't know, maybe there were little stories or things along the way that helped you become more visible and that you help people today with?
Yes, that's a great question. So I can tell you when everything started for the McCord List. So I started working when I was 13 years old in the restaurant industry and climbed my way up. By 16, I was managing a location. By 18, we had opened multiple locations and I was offered to have my own. That's when I realized this was not the track I wanted to take. So I got into corporate and was working at a really big PEO company called ADP. And then my sister had just done Nip Tuck and then did 90210 and was becoming pretty famous, honestly. She was on every billboard and bus and all the things. And she asked my oldest sister and I to move to Hollywood. So this was the beginning of a huge pivot to my life. I was approved for my first house at 19. I was like ready for a very different life. And then I decided to come out and support and help her as she was kind of finding her way in a very difficult industry. Once I moved out here, I started working with her, with all of her publicists and agents and managers, and just kind of being like that person who was getting all the wheels turning, connecting together. It's how I really cut my teeth in entertainment and learned a lot behind the scenes about the business of entertainment, what really makes things happen and what really makes them go. So I was doing that for a while, and in the process, we started hosting mini events. We'd partner with different brands and collaborations and do these huge red carpet events, and that's when I learned I love doing events. So I ended up starting my first company after opening a project at the Wynn, Las Vegas. I opened a venue there, and then I worked at Marquee Nightclub, and through all of that, I made a lot of connections. So I started my first company, then I sold it at 24. That was when I met my husband and realized that I just wanted to do something of purpose. I had done all the things that made sense to get me out of this life of depression and wanting to make money for myself, because I remember going to bed hungry and worrying if us as a family of 5 making $20,000 a year through my father's salary would be enough. And it wasn't many times. You know, there were a lot of prayers that went into miracle moments that kept our lights on at times. So it was hard. And I wanted to control that, so I started working so early. But the McCord List, when I started it in 2013, was the beginning of me really building something that was about purpose and impact and me deciding into something, not just doing what made sense because it was the next step on the journey. And I remember sitting on the floor of this little 2-bedroom apartment I share with my husband, and he said to me, you know, let's do this. I mapped it all out. I knew I wanted to do it, but I was terrified. Oh my goodness, I was terrified. The self-doubt was loud. The fear of being seen, of having my voice out there was terrifying. And I thought, no one needs to have another voice. There's already a Mel Robbins. There's already an Oprah. There's already a Tony Robbins. You don't need another Rachel, right? You don't need another person in the world. And my husband said, but if you could help 5 people who, like you, have been in the floor of their closets, dealing with major depression, panic attacks, suicidal ideation, would those 5 humans be worth it? And I was like, are you kidding? So in that moment, a huge pivot happened in my mind. I realized the fear that it would take for me to get on that stage or get on that show or build that platform was well worth the 5 humans who needed to hear what was on the other side of that voice. So I started shifting everything, and I stopped thinking about how I was doing this because I wanted to feed something, because it wasn't that. I always wanted to help. I just felt like it was irrelevant, and I was terrified, and I was looking for a way out, quite frankly, to put myself out there. I would have much rather build someone else's platform and help them grow. So that was the beginning of the McCord List, and we started building it, and it, you know, kind of went pretty viral. We were at the beginning of the influencer space. My sister had come from traditional entertainment. Social media is new media, so we were early on in that. We started hosting events, collaborating with huge brands, collaborating with creators and celebrities, and it started really blowing up. But what happened was it started building so big and so fast. My job was so focused on helping these brands connect with these creators because I was empowering the creators. I was sitting with them behind the scenes on their couches when they were ready to give up and encouraging them. But I realized I wasn't doing enough of that. I needed to do more of that. I needed to stop feeding this machine that kept me going, because that was really how the brands were working, right? If Showtime paid me to host this show, this opening for Ray Donovan, which we did before, that was great and exciting, but I was having to make sure Showtime was really happy, but the people who were coming were the people I wanted to help. So it was only after my open heart surgery, when I literally came to the end of my heartbeat, that I got to come back to the McCord List with a fresh perspective and said, you know, we've been helping people with influential audiences be encouraged, be impacted, being like activated, because I know that if I can get someone with a big platform to be transformed, their conversations will transform, and therefore their audience, their influence reach will also be transformed. because what I say as a human who's healed is a lot different than what I say as a human who's hurt. So if I can help heal people with influential platforms, I can help them. And we did that for many years. But it was when I started realizing that I only had so much time. And as a mom, as a wife, as a friend, a child of God, like I only have so much time that I can allocate to my different adventures and projects. So I wanted to be more nail in head. I decided it was time to help people of impact have influence versus focusing on people of influence be impacted. And it was a huge pivot, and it changed everything. Now we produce over 20 shows. We're working really hard day in and day night to help these people have visibility and also, like you said, get comfortable doing it.
Oh my gosh, I love it. You know, and as you were talking, I was thinking it's such a metaphor to what I see also a lot of people do in dating and relationships, where you're a helper. It's so apparent. And I think also when you were kind of the behind the scenes girl, there was so much energy that got poured into other people without filling yourself up. And I always say, like, you have to fill the pitcher of water first before you can even have water for the other cups. And to reverse that and really put yourself in the limelight, like front and foremost, like, I mean, it's an incredible shift, but it came from still wanting to help. But so there was like balance there, you know, and I see this happen all the time. And the problem with when you're too much on other people and the focus is you attract lopsided relationships, people who are takers, people who take advantage of you. So I wondered, like, was there any kind of shift with that, like when you were behind the scenes versus when you came forward with your relationships?
That's a great question. Yes. So what happened was I had a wild spiritual encounter and it changed my life forever. Like I literally went into this session to do EMDR, actually, had a total out of body experience. And that day I feel like my faith was really birthed and it continued to grow. 6 months later, had the same thing happen to me, but this time I was even more ready for it because the first encounter was all about forgiveness, forgiving the people who had really physically hurt me in my life. And then part two was about flowing, like you said, from an overflowed picture. Because I don't think that I had, and I'm still learning, how to properly love and care for myself. Oftentimes I'll wrap a day of filming. I'm like, oh my goodness, I didn't eat. I'm getting better at packing my meals and cramming chips between takes.
I saw that before we got
yeah, like cram. Yeah. Keep the blood sugar up. But you know, I'm learning how to do that because as a mom, I did it really well when I was pregnant, and then I do it for my son. But I'll be like, oh, I packed a full lunch for my kid, and I didn't patch anything for myself, and I know I'm not going to stop and eat. So learning how to do that has been more challenging. However, through my faith, I get everything that I need. So it's very interesting having a strong faith now that I have. I get so much of what I need in a relationship with the Most High. And then when I come into my relationship with my husband and with my son and my work and everything, I don't come from an empty tank or helping people, right? Because I heard this woman share, beautiful, she leads a ministry. It's incredible. I've come out and spoken there a few times. It's this big film camp where they help children whose parents are incarcerated. Maybe these kids are in foster care. And they actually could put a whole summer camp together for them to learn how to create projects. And then they get to connect with the community and build these things that they created. She's amazing. And she told me, Rachel, it's very important at the beginning of the work that you do to help people that you create boundaries around your time. So you put 70% of your time between adders, so people who are creating value into your life. It's friendships, it's like conversations that are inspiring to you. So those are adders. Then you take 15% and you allocate that to multipliers. So people who not only add value, but multiply it and really help you take it to the next level. Then you take 10%, your tithe, and that 10% goes to people who are subtractors. People like you described who are takers, because it doesn't matter, this is how you give back. 5% or less needs to go to dividers, people who actually create division and difficulty in your life and the lives of people around you. Hopefully you can get that number to zero, but we still live in the world where there's
reality too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So when she taught me that, it was really powerful for me because I got to be a little bit more aware, like you said, of defining out who you're helping, how you're helping, and what's really impactful. And for me, I'm totally committed to helping everybody that I feel like God's put in my path to help, but I don't want to like overdo it and then not have enough to give to the people who I know I'm called to. So there's this beautiful word that's in scripture, and it talks about, I only do what the Father says. So understanding that we're called to do what we're called to do. But when we try to do everything because it's in front of us, because it's flashing red light and it's a dramatic 911 hot emergency, we kind of get lost in the fire and the storm, and we lose sight of ourselves. So for me, having this like baseline is so important because it helps me in every area of my life. And most importantly, like it's, I think, what I was created for. So that helps.
I love it. And that was really, that's helpful how you are compartmentalizing like the different parts so that you don't get depleted. I mean, that's the thing, like you can be drained when you're a giver. And the other important thing that I want to highlight is that, especially with your upbringing, your confidence lives in being a helper. You know, so we all default back to what we know, good, bad, or indifferent, right? And in psychology, we call this the familiarity principle. And even when in crisis or when in stress, a lot of people, and I see this, you know, with clients, they'll default back to the helper because that's what they know. So it takes a minute to get used to being the receiver. And I wondered, like, if you had any advice for people, because I can hear people just listening to you be like, well, yeah, she's had some trauma. Like, she's so cute and put together and she lives in LA and like, you know, but they might not feel like they have hope. What is something that people can do to kind of rise from the ashes when they're feeling that way? Because they'll keep depleting themselves if not.
Yeah, that's a beautiful question as well. So I think first off, we have to take the mask off of ourselves.
Yes.
The mask for me was an apron. I felt like an ugly little toad on the inside, and I appreciate you saying I look really cute. Wow. But like, I mean, honestly, it's what we feel about ourselves that really is how we operate out of. I felt like this ugly little toad, and if I put the right apron on and I did all the things and everything was so perfect and I did this and that and I cooked this for everybody and kept bringing all my pearls before everybody, that I was lovable. So I think you've got to just ditch the mask and just be like, you know what, this is not for me. I think the second thing is we have to acknowledge the biggest roadblock that any person's going to face in their life is fear.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
So how do you overcome fear? Well, I think that you have to starve fear and you have to feed faith. So how do you do that? You cannot sit down in front of a person whose heartbeat has stopped for 5 hours of her life during a surgery where a machine was breathing for me and moving blood through my body because my heart was not beating. And you can't tell me that the way through fear is anything other than faith. Because I believe that with faith, you're praying, and with fear, you're praying as well. The question is, who are you praying to, and what are you believing is the outcome? If I get on an airplane, which I don't really love to do, if I'm being honest, I work through it. But if I get on that plane, which I just did yesterday, and I have to face a fear that has creeped up from a difficult flight I had one time, I get on there and I have to be equipped. I cannot get on a scary moment for myself without knowing what my tools are. So I'm instantly putting on Brandon Lake in my ears. I'm listening to worship, faith music that I know it connects for me because I'm shifting the atmosphere. I'm saying, you know what? I could sit in this space of fear and just feel it and pop a Xanax or, you know, just ignore it or lash out on people around me because I'm feeling an experience and no one gets what I'm feeling, right? Or I can open up my perspective. And being on a flight is the easiest way to do it. Because think about it. Once you do get high and you look down and everything looks so small, the problems in those houses that look so small, to them feel very big and look very big. The only difference is that our thinking is actually above. So the only way to step away from the fear that is holding you back in your life is to elevate your thinking. And for me, that is my faith. Through and through, I'm a Bible girl. I'm a read, devotion, pray. That is my go-to. I think God inhabits the praises of his people. It says that. So if I'm afraid, I'm on my knees. I'm like, help me, I messed up. But at the end of the day, working in entertainment, doing what I do with all the pressure and all of you make a mistake and everybody's mad because it impacts a lot of people's lives. Like, that's a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
But I have to acknowledge that I am a human. I am not perfect, and I never will be. It's scary to take on challenges and to take on things that feel bigger than me. But if I look at it like it's up to me, then I'm in trouble. But if I look up and say, hey, this is your business. You told me to do this, bro. Like, you know, what do you want me to do? And if it's for you, it won't pass you. So sometimes you just have to accept, right? It's that level of surrender like you talk about when you're coaching people on how to date, right? Walk in a room with surrender. What does that look like? And the third piece for me is you got to do what you're here for. You cannot do that if you haven't overcome the fear. And the only way you overcome it is by starving it. That means when it's hungry, you don't feed it what it wants. You don't just give it a pill and let it just breathe away. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with pills, but I'm saying for myself, like, I'll be honest, I take my little prescription of pill bottle of Xanax on every flight, and I don't take it. It sits there because I don't want to feel trapped. I'm just getting real right now. I don't want to feel trapped. I hold my little wooden cross. I play my music. I breathe and I pray. And I've had real heart issues on planes. We've almost diverted planes. I've had oxygen dropping. I needed oxygen. I mean, I've had some scenarios. So I'm saying this as someone who's like built faith through fire, which is where I think the only true faith is. And I don't think that any of us can really escape the brokenness of this world without actually elevating where we're coming from. And I know faith can be different things for so many different people. And I think it's important to be on a journey of truth for yourself with whatever that looks like. For me, I know what it looks like, but it's also the openness of saying, I'm going to show up fully with the openness of what will come. And now, since my surgery, I see hearts literally everywhere. So those are my little God winks. Those are my little moments that remind me I'm not alone. And if I'm not alone, I don't have to be afraid.
Oh my God, so beautiful. My mind's racing. I have so many questions, and I know we don't have like a lot of time. I'll have to have you back on the show. But one of the things that I'm really hearing you say is that it has to do with perspective and purpose. Like, those are the two words that are coming to my mind. And whether you're looking down from a plane or up above, it's how you see things that's going to make a huge difference. And when you've had a series of, like, say, traumatic relationships, or you're coming out of a divorce, like, this is what I see in the dating world, is that your perspective is that all guys are asses, you know, or all women are bitches. I can say this on my show. But, you know, and if that is your belief, then that's all you're going to see. 100%, like every single time. It's like the same guy in a different costume every single time. But if you change your perspective, you change your approach, and you change your mindset, I call it the MAP method, and you actually just described it beautifully, that's when you start seeing something different. I love that. And then the fear, and then I have a last follow-up question on that. The fear is often fabricated, rooted in our previous experience. So, like, one person can fly a plane and be fine. Like, what is she concerned about? But the other person had all these horrible experiences in planes. So of course you're going to have the Xanax next to you when next time you fly. So how we can bring that to dating is so important. I just want to, like, kind of bridge it together, because you can go in on every date thinking that it's going to be like your last relationship. But if you go in saying, no, I'm seeing hearts everywhere, like you are, and you don't have to even be faith-based. It could be your positivity. It could be just the way that you're seeing things. Then you're going to see the goodness. So it's so beautiful how you, like, kind of tied it in a big bow just now. What would you say that the hardest thing to, like, for you, and especially because you work with people, I don't know, maybe they're shy behind the camera, you know, we're going back to the visibility thing, to get over some of the fear of being visible?
Well, I think that you have to really lock into why you're doing this, right? If you're only doing this because you saw an Instagram video that said you need to be the face of your business, then it's not going to be effective. But if you could take that recommendation, which I think is very good advice, and you can double click on it, and you could say, why did I create this business in the first place? Why did I decide to start coaching people into starting over? Well, it's because I had to start over.
Because I had a hot mess story.
Yeah. I was scared.
Right.
I was struggling. I didn't know what to do. So I want to help that person who's a hot mess right now. What does that person look like? Well, maybe they're a single mom and they just want to feel beautiful. And they go to a department store and they cry because they've covered all the mirrors and they're not used to ever looking at themselves. And now they need to do, well, I care about that person a lot. And I want to help that person figure out what he or she is missing. And I think I could also help them get more comfortable putting themselves out there and maybe believing that a new relationship could come. And just by your commitment to that decision, that work, and creating content around it, now there's a person who sees that content and gets the inspiration to maybe attend a retreat or just consume content and make different choices that create different reach. And then maybe because of that, a marriage is formed, a baby comes, and that human has life all because of that. So it's not about the camera. It's not about me sitting here and sweating in weird places to tell a story I'm nervous to tell. No, it's about thinking of that person who right now needs to hear it. Those 5 human beings who, because of your work, are going to have the hope to keep going, are going to have the passion and the purpose and the know-how. So for me, when I open up the studio and turn on the lights and the cameras and all the things, I'm thinking the person who's going to sit there is going to share a message that costs them quite a bit. My story cost me a lot, but what's happened from it, what can happen from it, how it can inspire, how it can activate, because that's what we really want, right? We want to be activated. There's a lot of inspiration in the world, but are you activated? Are you unstuck? Are you being brave? And so if I can be a part of the conversation that gets you there, then I know that not only are you changing your life, and that impacts your kids at home, that impacts your relationships, it also impacts the people around you, maybe the clients who get to know you, the people who work next door to you at the cubicle. So if we can all do our part in that way, you have to think about the person on the other side of the camera, and we just need to stop thinking about ourselves. So if we're nervous, it's because we're thinking about ourselves, our performance, how we look, if we're going to be okay. And the truth is the world likes bloopers, and it's okay to mess up. And I do tongue twists all the time. We see it all the time. And sometimes I'm like, post that because that's hilarious. We just got to be real. And I think that's the key.
Well, to have humility and laugh at yourself. But I think, too, what you're saying is being present. Because if you're present, you're really listening to the other person. Like right now, I am so with you right now, and I'm so listening to you. I know that there's a camera behind me. I know there's lights on me. But if you focus outside yourself, then you're going to lose the connection that's right here. So that's why it's such a metaphor, like what you do with people here, you know, in front of a camera, but also like how that pertains to dating. I always tell people, when you go on a date, you have just 2 jobs: connect and be curious. That's it. That's it. Just be curious about the person in front of you. Like you were saying, like what do they have going on? What can you learn from them? And so I think if we all did this in every part of our life, we would be more connected, especially in this busy, busy world. Oh my gosh. I could go on and on with you. Do you have any like parting words of wisdom? And please let everybody know about your studio and where to find you and anything that you want to share.
Yes. Well, my whole world is available on rachelmccord.com. The McCordlist.com is where we run our studio and produce different shows. But I think my advice is just to do what you're here for, just to be real about yourself, where you're at and where you're going, to starve fear, feed faith, and do what you're here for. Just go out and put yourself out there, and don't be afraid to be brave.
Oh, I so appreciate you. I want to hug you, but I know we have a distance thing that we have to do here. There's cameras.
There's mics.
Who cares about cameras, right? So thanks for joining me today. I am your host, Kimmy Seltzer. This has been the Charisma Quotient. And remember, you can build confidence, make connections, and find love from the outside in. And if you want to know more, as always, go to my website, kimmyseltzer.com. And if you're feeling invisible, scared of being seen, and your confidence has gotten lost, or maybe you never had it, definitely hop on a private call with me. We'll map out a plan to help you become more visible so that you can be seen and put yourself out there. Just click the link that you see in the booking link, and I will help you get there. And remember, working on you is working on your dating life. That's all for now.